G'day Bomber fans, the VFL season is done, but before I talk about the year as a whole, because I will be doing that shortly, I'll be grading every VFL player's season. I had a suggestion for that in a recent comment, but before I do that, I'm going to talk about the last fortnight. We had a great end to the year with some great performances. We had a look at some potential draftees as well. There's lots going on in the resi, so I'm going to talk about every AFL listed player and how they went in the last two games. We first up played Gold Coast. We were really wasteful but got the job done. 11 goals 25 to 11 goals 13. We won by 2 goals. And against Coburg, we were dominant from the get-go. We won 111 to 73 away from home. So let's talk about how the AFL listed guys went in those matches. Starting off with Elijah Tsatas. If he doesn't get a game against Brisbane, I honestly hope he asks for a trade. He really can't do much more than he's doing. He was really good against Gold Coast. 27 touches, 7 clearances, 7 inside 50s. It was a good game without being amazing. Against Coburg, though, that was crazy. 41 touches, 8 clearances, 5 tackles, 13 score involvements, a goal. What else can you really do? He was great. He was such a presence, not only in stoppages where he thrives, but around the ground. That is what we needed to see more of him being more involved in open play. He wasn't always great with ball in hand, but 19 contested possessions, that is valuable. I'll talk about him more in a season review, but his VFL form is proof of what he can be in the future with some size, in the right position. He's always placed out of position in the AFL. I hope at some stage we see him where he belongs, even for a trial, even for a half a footy. The season's over against Brisbane anyway. It's a good time to test things out. He needs to be back in that AFL side just to show him that good form can be rewarded. Imagine the confidence dent that he will feel if he misses out on that final game, knowing that he literally can't do any more to get back in the side. That was a near perfect match. Maybe his disposal was a tad iffy at time, but he was as electric as I've seen all year. Sam Weideman was brought back into the AFL side for the Sydney game to cover the loss of Nick Cox. To be fair, he is our best defender outside of the AFL team. That is, if fit. He is ahead of Lewis Hayes in terms of player I would want playing in a grand final team right now, but that isn't really where the club is at. I would have rather seen Lewis Hayes play, to be honest, in the AFL, even if it's throwing him in the deep end a bit, because the season's done. I think one game to end the year would have been decent for development, but that isn't what this video is about. Weideman was pretty good against Gold Coast, as he's been all year down back. He was really solid. He intercepted well. He didn't come in due to good form, though. It's not like he played a standout game and demanded selection. It was Nick Cox's injury that got him that spot. I doubt he plays next week. I'd honestly rather see Cox back or Hayes, someone that we'll actually be using in the future. Will Setterfield was really good against Coburg after not playing against the Suns. He had 27 disposals, a goal. His defensive craft in stoppages was really great. 5 tackles, 6 clearances. At this level, he has a really great balance of being able to read the ball out of a tap and feed an outside runner, or read the opposition direction of movement to halt their clearances. The speed of VFL footy really suits him a lot more than AFL. I don't think he's done enough to play AFL this week, which could be really interesting for his contract status. We're going to see what happens. Archie Perkins just played the one game in this period against the Suns. He was pretty incredible. He played a lot of midfield, which he didn't do the week before. He was heavily involved at stoppages and made a serious impact going forward as well. It's clear to see why he was brought back into the AFL team. He wasn't great against Sydney, but he deserved the recall from his Resi's form. The move back to the VFL should have happened much earlier, I reckon. If he drops in form next year, I hope that move is made sooner, because he looks to find real confidence playing at the lower level. His ability to shrug a tackle is second to none at that level. He's so solid and sturdy and so powerful if he hits the ball at pace. He was really good. It didn't exactly translate in the AFL against the Swans, though. Todd Goldstein, he's playing lots of VFL footy lately. He had a really tough fortnight. He was soundly beaten by Ned Moyle against Gold Coast. That was maybe a sign that the end is near. Not only was he playing VFL footy, but he was losing the contest to his opponent. That is not at all what you want to see. The following week, he started like a house on fire. He was the best player on the ground in that first quarter. He wound back the clock. He was so good with ball in hand. He was doing blind turns, spinning out on players, taking them on. It was fun to watch. Unfortunately, he suffered a big corky early and didn't return to the field, so he only played less than a quarter, but he was really good. He was best on ground in that time. Lewis Hayes has been good. He was really strong in the air against Gold Coast. He had a big impact. It was some of that early season marking form back on display. That is why I thought he could potentially be given that Sydney spot, even though I knew Weeds was most likely to get it. Against Coburg, he was solid without having that real aerial impact. I have at least liked the fact that he is at the very least solid. He hasn't had many bad games. Most of the time he is at least keeping his opponent down, which is where he was doing against Coburg. It was a solid way to end a good year. He has been one of our best in the VFL this season. It's been fun watching him develop. He definitely deserved that contract extension. Nick Hind has been really great. He hasn't really done a lot wrong at all. In fact, he's done plenty right. He's been nothing short of exceptional in the reserves. He's such a leader for those young boys, often used to spark excitement in our play. It's fun watching him in full flight. It's just unfortunate that he doesn't really have that same energy at AFL level anymore. Against Gold Coast, he was one of our better performers in the loss. He got heaps of the pill, often I think he was actually our highest disposal getter. He was often running for that receive to really inject pace into a play when a mark was taken. He comes back for that handball receive. He had serious drive, and you felt that in the Coburg game as well. He got so much of the footy in the last fortnight, only beaten 4 disposals by Elijah Tsatas, 29 against the Suns, 32 against Coburg. That Coburg game, 29 of those disposals were kicks. You can see his directive, hit the ball at pace, take players on and use his foot skills. He isn't known for his kicking at AFL level, but in the Rezzies he's one of our better ball users generally, so he's always looking to take the game on. Peter Wright, he's actually been really good to be honest. He's posing some questions to Scott, especially in that last game. Against the Suns he kicked 3, he had 9 disposals, but was really making things happen whenever he had the ball. He had 2 behinds as well, 7 score involvements, 3 contested marks. It was a good game. The Coburg one was a great game though. He was forced to ruck because Goldie was injured, and he was everywhere. 15 touches, 2 goals, 37 hitouts, 9 score involvements. It was a really well-rounded match, and one that I think he should take a lot of confidence from, not just because he kicked 5 goals in the last 2 games, but because he's honed in on his ruck craft as well, something that I think he needs to improve on if he wants to play with us regularly next year and in the future. It was good to see him really take control of a game. It was his best match since being dropped to the Rezzies. Davey Jr., just the 1 game, played really well though, one of his better performances this year. He pushed a lot higher up the field, he was involved in a few stoppages, used his defensive pressure really well. Only the 4 tackles, but it felt like more, and some really stuck as well. That's something that he's been criticised for, being easy to break tackles on, but he had a real defensive presence about him. His ball use wasn't great, he set the tone early with some bad turnovers, but I think he took a lot of steps forward in this match in some ways. If you can manage to keep that pressure up while being really impactful with the ball, he's going to be a handy player. Luamon Lual, finally the move up forward paid off. The Gold Coast game was a bit comical. We were trying to get him his first goal and it just wasn't working out, and that's been happening for the last few weeks now. He played really deep against Coburg. He was often right down near the square using his pressure to try and get that loose ball out. It doesn't work much, to be honest. You feel like he's often chasing. He needs to work on that a bit. But late he managed to find himself on the end of a couple of goals. He got his first for the club, followed on with another one. It's good to see him close out the year with a good game up forward. We've now seen him impact the game on both ends of the field in the same season. I'm excited to see how he develops in 2025 and where he develops in 2025. Jayden Davey, I think we really needed to see him close out the year well. He's out of contract. He hasn't shown heaps. He needed a big finish, and we unfortunately got a really average fortnight out of him. It was an almost day against Gold Coast. He was at least threatening. He had 3 behinds, just couldn't convert those chances. Against Coburg, he barely got a look in. He had 11 touches, but it felt like 5 or 6. He really didn't have much impact on the game at all, I think, and I wonder if this will haunt him come the exit meeting. I wonder if he's going to be an AFL level player. If anything, it's a 1-year deal. We haven't seen enough from him this season. Too many games like this. I don't know if he's on our list next year. Vigo Visentini, now he only played the 1 game. He was alright against Gold Coast, a bit of an almost day, had some chances, couldn't quite get the chocolates, didn't really get much of a chance in the ruck either, but the big talking point from that was the massive bump that resulted in a suspension, a 4-game suspension, so he missed the Coburg match and unfortunately will not play early next season either. But all in all, it's been a really good year for him. I didn't expect to be seeing this much out of him this early. It's why he was rewarded with that contract extension. Let's see what he can do next year. Tex Wanganeen, he had a really good end to the season. This move down back has been great for him. He's kind of swapped with Luamon Lual. I wish there were meters gain stats in the VFL because I feel like he'd be right up there most weeks. 21 touches against Gold Coast, really good rebounding. Against Coburg, he had less of the ball, but I noticed his defensive pressure a lot more, whether it was a chase or a spoil. He was actively making a big effort to defend the ground as well. It was good to see, and it shows he still has some development in him. I just don't know how much he has at AFL level. Saad El-Hawli, he has been awesome since returning. I think we're noticing him struggle to run out games as much. Maybe that's just because of his return from injury. So those calling for an AFL spot, I'm not 100% convinced we see it this week. He's maybe a tad underdone, but when he's on, he's borderline unstoppable. 21 touches against Gold Coast despite a poor finish to the game. 10 score involvements, 9 interceptions, played mostly wing, halfback a bit as well, I reckon. The Coburg game was great. He didn't really come in and out of it as much, which is good. You felt his presence throughout. 27 touches, 8 score involvements. I wish there was one more VFL game so we could see him again, but I think he'll be pushing for our senior side early next year. His energy is terrific. Some other players I want to quickly talk about. We had a father and son and an academy player make their debut for us. Both could be drafted this year, so it was good for us to see them. Noah Caracella, the son of Blake, a really great moment. Father coaching son. Noah is probably not in line to be drafted, I would say. He hasn't shown enough this year. If anything, it would be a rookie draft, but I doubt it. He had 11 touches. He was okay. He's an outside player, halfback, wing, half forward. He's very versatile. style. You could see he was a bit shaky with the speed differential from junior to senior level, but he wasn't bad. Jayden Nguyen is the other. This is a kid I like, academy kid. Everyone talks about Isaac Kako, so we kind of forget about this guy. He could be drafted, maybe rookie, but he definitely could be. He was pretty good. He's a defender, played up the field a little bit here. He actually kicked a goal to go along with his 16 touches. Turned the footy over a little bit, but not really an issue if it's your first VFL game as an underager. Job Shanahan is another in his draft year. He's not linked with us through the academy or anything, but we are giving him a crack in the VFL. He kicked 5 goals. He looks great. Hopefully we end up with him on our list somehow. That is that. Video done. The last VFL recap for the year. I'll do a VFL end of season review for the guys like Hayes and Lual who just weren't able to break the senior team with a grade, just so you guys can see how they're going, like I do for the AFL team. That's all for now though. Like, subscribe, and go Bombers.